Good morning, everybody. I love when people have an opportunity to catch up and see each other, so I'm sorry to end some of those important conversations. It's so great to see many people here this morning. Just making sure I have all the panelists to my left. Yes, I do. So good morning. Thank you so much for joining us to focus on early childhood education. I'm Dr. Joanne Roberts, lead consultant for the Vital Communities Early Childhood Education Initiative. This breakfast is the culmination of the ECE Initiative, which began in 2021 with funding from Dartmouth College, the City of Lebanon, and the Couch Family Foundation. At that time, it was clear that the pandemic had worsened the Upper Valley's chronic shortage of affordable, high-quality care, and that everyone was feeling it. Parents who could not work, employers who could not fill jobs, and the public who relied on those understaffed businesses. The effort began with a two-day seminar in late 2021 and continued with the formation of a steering committee and working groups that worked on improving childcare educators' pay and training, addressing the stresses for ECE centers, and advocating for legislation in Concord and Montpelier. The initiative's main accomplishment is greater connection among early childhood educators, business owners, parents, representatives of local government, and ECE experts and resource organizations. Another is advocacy. Through events, state health visits, the op-eds, the initiative drew attention to the issue and supported important legislation. Projects aided by the initiative include the Career Cultivator for Permanent and Substitute Educators through the Early Care and Education Association, supported by Dartmouth College, Dartmouth Health, and the Couch Foundation. A new health sciences course with an ECE pathway at the Hartford Career and Tech Center that began this fall. A Farm to ECE effort to help programs provide their children with nourishing local food. Pilot programs for early educators focused on providing training and support for financial software. Connecting and building partnerships with people and businesses seeking innovative ways to support early childhood education. As you can see, we've made great progress, but there is still more to do. This morning you will hear from 5 panelists who will provide information and offer action steps. So let's meet our panelists. Would you please introduce yourselves? Let's start with Jen.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Hosmer. I'm the Executive Director at the Children's Center of the Upper Valley.
Good morning. My name is Amy Brooks. I'm the Executive Director of the Early Care and Education Association.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Carolyn Isbell. I'm the System Vice President of Talent Acquisition and Career Development for the Dartmouth Health System. I know, it's very long. And under that umbrella, I also support our workforce housing and childcare programs.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Emily Tenenbaum with Let's Grow Kids. I am the Chief of External Affairs and Strategy and work with our C4 and all of our campaign work in Vermont.
And good morning, everyone. I'm Sarah Vecchiati with the Couch Family Foundation.
Thank you all so much for being here. And Jen, would you like to start the conversation by sharing the issues that you are facing?
Sure, yeah. So again, good morning. My name is Jennifer Hosmer. I'm the Executive Director at the Children's Center of the Upper Valley in Lebanon, New Hampshire. I've been at the Children's Center for 22 years. The nonprofit center has been in the The nonprofit center has been in the Upper Valley community since 1971. It is licensed for 95 children ages 6 weeks to 5 years old and employs 21 staff. There are 5 classrooms, 1 infant, 2 toddler, and 2 preschool. As part of our program, we offer breakfast, lunch, and an afternoon snack. The children are provided educational opportunities as well as much needed outside time to run and explore in one of our 5 playgrounds. We offer our families a sliding fee scale based on their income. Besides being the executive director at the Children's Center, I am the board chair of the Early Care and Education Association and on the advisory committee for the emerging New Hampshire chapter of the National Association for the Education of Young Children. Especially in the last few years, but really beyond that, childcare has been in crisis. Low wages are forcing childcare workers to look elsewhere for better paying jobs. The average turnover rate for childcare worker is 9 months, which is never filled quickly, often taking months to replace. An open position leaves 10 vacant childcare slots that centers can no longer fill until the position is. By having vacant positions, current center employees are often asked to work longer hours, and workload is distributed to others, creating stress and burnout amongst everyone. As a director, you make every effort to ease the instability of the daily operations by covering in classrooms to meet teacher-child ratios, cooking or cleaning, but then the administration work gets put on the back burner. The number one revenue source for centers is tuition from families. When creating a yearly budget, it is always a struggle to keep the rates for families low, but paying the staff livable wages. Staffing is about 80% of our overall budget, which then leaves little for all the expenses, especially with the rate of inflation. Vendors that increase their rates do not apologize for increasing our expenses, but yet we worry about increasing the rates for families. The wait lists are long, often receiving on average 5 calls per day. Most families plan ahead and put their names on a wait list, but sometimes people are calling out of desperation to find care, then upset when you tell them you don't have space. We have had people put their names on our wait list just in case they have a baby in the future, or people might be moving into the area within a couple of years. Our wait list mostly consists of families with infants. Currently, there are 57 families waiting for the 12 infant spots in our center. The funding through the New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services has been instrumental in keeping centers afloat over the last few years. The grant funding from corporations has become more competitive because everyone so desperately needs it. Unfortunately, families can't afford the true cost of care. Our teachers need livable wages to stay in the field. Parents need centers to provide high-quality childcare while they work. And the entire workforce needs these parents to keep businesses functioning each day. It's a vicious cycle that will break unless the entire community of federal, state, and local stakeholders come together to make an investment in childcare. When I first started in the field 25 plus years ago, you entered the field because you did it for the love of children and making a difference in their lives. There is still a lot of love and passion by many amazing individuals working with children, but unfortunately teacher salaries are not enough to cover monthly expenses. For that reason alone, many high schools are discouraging students to explore a career in early childhood. As we know, high school students are feeders into the college systems. Without those students, colleges are also dropping the early childhood majors, making the pool of candidates even smaller than it once was. 2 years ago, I was approached by Amy Brooks, the executive director for the ECEA, which you will hear from shortly, regarding a concept for workforce development in early childhood called the Career Cultivator Program. These individuals that go through the 10-week program we're probably never going to enter the early childhood workforce, but it gives them an opportunity to learn more about working in childcare. Upon graduating, they come to centers with all the requirements that are needed to begin their careers in both Vermont and New Hampshire, which helps tremendously in the onboarding process of a new hire. in the program have to sub in a center. As a center that utilizes both the sub pool and hires individuals after graduating, this innovative program has saved us from having to close rooms or the centers on numerous occasions. As a director, I would not enjoy calling families to tell them that they have no care for the day. Individuals who may not have paid time off from their employer. For you as an employer, think about employees calling in that they did not have childcare, and how would that impact your production for the day? Since the beginning of the Career Cultivator program, the Children's Center has hired 6 graduates from the program, 5 of which are still employed. As I mentioned earlier, one employee allows centers to enroll 10 children on average. That's 50 childcare spots this program has helped to fill it to the workforce. I have with me today Amber in the red. Can you wave your hand? Amber graduated from the program about a year ago now. She travels over an hour to come to work one way, just so that she can spend time with her daughter while at work. She graduated the Career Cultivator program. Amber has, since graduating the Career Cultivator program, Amber completed her CDA, which is a Child Development Associate, in record time, and is now the lead teacher of a preschool classroom. Unfortunately, childcare is not out of the woods yet. The funding that the state has dispersed to childcare programs is only a Band-Aid. Something has to be done in order to make childcare more affordable and attract future childcare workers. The Early Care and Education Association with Amy Brooks and her team has been instrumental in thinking outside the box, but that's only a small piece to this larger puzzle. With 100% certainty, I can say that I am not alone in this struggle to keep the doors open. Our teachers are tired and struggling just to receive a livable wage, but yet they still come to work every day to make the difference in the lives of children. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all that you do and the people in the field do. And next we will hear from Amy Brooks. I will point your attention to a colored document on the tables that's connected with Amy and her team's work.
Good morning. As I said in my introduction, I am Amy Brooks. I'm the Executive Director of the Early Care and Education Association. The Early Care and Education Association, also known as the ECEA, is a network of licensed, family-based, and center-based childcare programs in the greater Upper Valley region. But we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we serve all licensed family and center-based childcare programs in the region. Our staff of 7 provide childcare programs with high-impact programs that target the increase of quality, capacity, and program sustainability. And as Jen mentioned, of those programs, our staffing at childcare is the primary challenge at this point. So our Career Cultivator program, and you have this document on the table, is made up of 3 parts. And each one of those pieces fills kind of a greater solution, it's a comprehensive solution to the childcare staffing problem. And to this day, I think we're in our current cohort is 7, we're in our 7th cohort. We've had 54 students complete the program, and that's equals, and if you go by 8, it's around over 400, or by 10, it's over 500 children can stay in care or have care because of that one student completing the program. The 3 components of this workforce strategy are the Career Cultivator, which is a pre-hire workforce training. It's a 10-week program. It is for people who are sort of on the fence, unsure of, have no experience in early childhood. We help them understand, kind of demystify early childhood, and we give them all the basic credentials needed to enter a classroom and be successful in that 10-week program. On week 5, we've instituted a subpool program, which the Career Cultivator feeds. The subpool is a way for these students to get additional experience, but also additional income while they're going through the training. One of the greatest factors for burnout for childcare providers is not getting time off. And the subpool has been able to, I think we're at the 30% mark. We're able to fill 30% of the requested time off, which in year 1 is a pretty big step. Some people it's a flexible program, so when you leave the program, you can stay in the subpool. We've had people stay in the subpool for 2 or 3 months while they make arrangements in their own personal situation to work full time. And we've had people stay in the subpool per diem, kind of at their own schedule. One of the things we learned is that when you hire, many of the times when people coming into a full-time job, that kind of burns them out at the 40-hour and sometimes 60 in early childhood hour weeks, burn them out pretty quick. So the subpool allows them to come in at a 20-hour week or one day a week or at full-time. That flexibility has been very inviting, not having the commitment of having to commit to a 40-hour week right off. I think that attributes to the success of the program. The second component is mentor training. Just because we have staff that are great with children doesn't mean they really understand adult learning theory and can work with new students that are coming in the classroom or new people that are new to the field. So what we're doing is we're training already incumbent staff working in the field to be mentors to new staff coming into the field, and kind of lifting them up, recognizing them for their commitment and for their knowledge, and giving them the tools they need to help the future workforce. As part of that, we make sure that this is not a classroom, read a book type of a program. This is hands-on in an observation site. So day 1, they are observing in a classroom, and they're part of an early childhood program. And then another piece of this that we're starting to move into is understanding, getting down the pipeline a little further, earlier into the high school programs. As mentioned, the high school programs have started to not feed early childhood. So we're looking to launch in November a high school program called Sprouts, Career Cultivator Sprouts. And we'll be going into high schools and really working with that age group to find out really what are the tricks to recruiting and talking to high school students about the field, and also to bring them into training programs earlier than after graduation. If you look at some of the data that's on the data sheet, all of the, and Amber's one of them, all of the students that have completed the Career Cultivator program have said, 100% of them have said that without that program they would not have entered the field. To leave a job in retail or in another career and jump to a career and you have no idea what it is or the knowledge of it is really difficult. So our workforce program is 3 days a week. It is not a commitment, to a 40-hour week, or you don't have to leave your other job. So it's really been flexible, and we've been able to move people into the field in a different way, in a different pace. And then we have lots of success stories like Amber's. So I hope if you have any questions, we have lots of our team here today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate working with you and also with your team. The innovations that you guys keep coming up with are really amazing, so thank you so much. Carolyn, would you like to talk a bit about your role?
Sure. Thanks, Joanne. I've had the pleasure of working with the ECEA for about the last 2 years, and as you had just said, the innovation and the thought that they've put into their workforce strategy just blows me away time and time again. Dartmouth Health, like every other employer in this region, has faced challenges around childcare. Our workforce are directly impacted by the shortages in this region, and more so than that, even as a large healthcare organization, we recognize the critical importance of high-quality childcare for our families and kids in this community. And with all of the shortages, we see people not being able to participate fully in the workforce. We see the stress that some of the higher costs feel to all of our families. And even for the kids that are in these centers, having consistent staff that they learn to trust and love is so important to their own development. As I had mentioned, so childcare programs fall under my purview for Dartmouth Health, and we operate 4 centers currently, and we're in the process of working with our partners at the CCBA to open a 5th childcare center. And while we operate these centers with a staff of 15,000 people, that's not going to meet the need. We recognize that as a large employer that we have a role to play in really fostering solutions within the community as well. Back in 2023, we started meeting regularly with the ECEA to really try to understand kind of the crux of the issue. Like, what was the root cause? What's stopping childcare centers from being fully open to capacity? What do we need to do to build more centers? What do we need to do to think about the home provider network? And all of these things, I'll be honest, Amy educated me on through many hours of discussion. So, but it was really helpful because together we were able to better understand it, and that allowed me to become part of their advocacy team to go out and share some of the issues from an employer perspective. Second to that, it really helped us to identify what we could do together. And our job as Dartmouth Health in this community is to provide health care to all the people living in our communities. It's not to run childcare centers. We need to find ways to partner with the agencies and organizations that really truly know and own this work, and then help them amplify their efforts. So Dartmouth College was also another partner in all of these, in a lot of these discussions, and the 2 organizations have now come together to, and we're going to be offering $100,000 each year by each organization to the Early Care and Education Association to offset programming costs. One of the things that I heard time and time again is that with a small nonprofit, there's often times where they're seeking grant funding or seeking that next piece of funding in order to deliver a cohort. And we recognized early on that by providing some level of consistent funding, that they could then, 1, leverage that when applying for additional grant funding, but also be really focused on their mission instead of having to focus as much energy and time on securing the funding to continue to operate. So as I think about other employers in this room and in this region, part of how we can help is not necessarily by thinking individually, what do I need to do to address childcare for my organization and my facility, but how do I partner with the agencies and organizations in our community to amplify those efforts? So I put that out there as a suggestion to any employer that this is a way for us to have bigger impact together. The other piece and an area that we've been able to partner with the ECEA on is through providing some of the infrastructure for grant requests. And last year we did and were successful in receiving a $400,000 congressionally directed spending request through Senator Shaheen's office, right? Yep. And this is going to allow us to take the Career Cultivator program and expand it to the Claremont region, therefore having a secondary training site and being able to train and add more early childhood educators to the workforce. So these are some of the things that we've done over the last couple of years. I can't wait to see where we go and grow next, but I'm happy to share any additional details or how we've set some of this up, but I just encourage employers to become a part of the solution, join us in this work. It's incredibly impactful, and I really feel like we're on a path to being able to resolve some of the childcare issues in this region.
Carolyn, I also want to thank you for being the kind of person that reaches out and said, how can I help? And took the time to have the conversations and to open doors. So grateful for that. So thank you so much. Emily, would you like to talk about Let's Grow Kids?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. So happy to be here today. I actually grew up in this area. I went to Hartford High School, so I got to spend the night at my parents' house last night, which was super fun without my 3 kids. So moment of zen and silence, so it was great. And I'm really excited also to be back here working with Vital Communities. I've been part of their steering committee for the past couple of years as I did my work in Vermont. So I'm really, really excited to share a little bit of progress and a little bit of hope, but also continue kind of resonating that the work is not done and that we need to continue to work together to make sure we see progress on childcare. So some of you may know in 2023, seems like a long time ago, very recently, Vermont passed a childcare bill called Act 76, which invested $125 million back into the early education system in Vermont. A lot of that's going back into 35% increase in reimbursement rates for kids in care in Vermont. So this investment was not easy. There was a lot of backstory, which I can go through a little bit, but what we're seeing now on the ground is that infusion of investment and funds is making a difference already, and we're just getting started, right? So when you see a policy that it's going to be a long time, 2, 3, 4 years, but we're already seeing the progress on the ground. We've had 1,000 new spots open up since this investment hit the ground all over Vermont. We've had 39 new family childcare homes open, which we love to see. It's really, really important. We all know in rural states like New Hampshire and Vermont, and we're seeing folks and stories. So a lot of our work right now is pulling out stories. It'll be part of my call to action today for you all, is really understanding that this is making a difference in communities in Vermont right now. So families we're talking to are paying 1/3 of the cost. We just had the next round of expansion for eligibility. So the way there's a 35% increase for programs per kid, and then there's also a reduction in costs for families because they're into our tuition assistance program, which is now up to 575% of federal poverty line. So families are seeing that on the ground today. I have a little one in care too. One of her, when the families were there with, said, I'm paying 1/3 of the cost, and it's actually making a difference. My entire paycheck is no longer going just to childcare. I can feel good about my quality childcare, and I can feel good about being in the workforce. So this is having a real huge impact, and it's really important that we kind of continue the progress because we're not there yet. In Vermont, we're not, that 35% reimbursement rate is not nearly the full cost of care that it takes for programs to serve these kids. We don't have nearly the amount, so I'm really excited to hear all the work that's going on with pathways and workforce because we are not, we probably need 2,000 plus more early educators in Vermont to serve the needs of Vermont families. I'm so excited to hear about the work that employers are doing because it is absolutely critical that we see this as a holistic, systemic change and that we're not, employers could do it alone. Maybe they want to, many don't, and our employers are really understanding that when we invest in childcare, they're seeing retention and new folks being able to be hired into their companies, allowing them to grow. So really excited about all that progress and making sure I'm hitting on a Monday morning all the things. And we work with First Children's Finance, who has now transitioned a lot of the work that Let's Grow Kids used to do on technical assistance and grant capacity. So First Children's Finance is now tracking a lot of our progress as well in Vermont. And it was the first time for the first 2 quarters of this year, we saw more openings than closures. And that hasn't happened in a really long time. So just those little moments, yes, this is working. And I think what's resonating here is that the Band-Aid approach, the grants, all super helpful, but getting to a place where where we're actually investing and fixing the market failures that we have seen in childcare. Parents can't pay more, and we need to pay early educators more for the quality work that they provide, and it's really, really essential. And so I think we're doing a lot of work to help people understand that you don't have spaces open up, you don't get the capacity you want if you're not investing in this workforce in a way that's meaningful. They are the workforce behind the workforce. They're what allow surgeons to be saving lives. They're what allow kindergarten teachers to be teaching our kids in K through 12. Like, this is really critical, and I think what is hard and exciting is we saw a crisis moment. We are not out of that crisis moment, but taking that momentum and opportunity and looking what's happening around the country, we're seeing childcare talked about in one of the top 3 issues in Vermont right now. Housing, climate, childcare, right up there, and to see elected officials who are making decisions every day about where dollars go, elevating childcare. And then I know it's not exactly what everyone wants to, it's not exactly where we'd want to have federal moment be and the progress, but we're hearing them talk about it. It's on the debate stage federally. Like, we, as childcare advocates, have not had this moment and been elevated in this way. And so I look at that with my political view and I say, this is a moment where we can do some of the things we dreamt about, we hoped for this industry and for our families, for our kids. And when you invest in childcare early, we're helping build a brighter workforce, not just in early education, but for all our employers. We're helping making sure these communities can thrive and that parents can feel good getting back into the workforce. And these kids, we all know here, I'm not even getting into the brain science and making sure that kids are showing up ready to learn in K through 12 settings. So this is a moment that I think is really, really amazing, and I think gets me really excited on a Monday morning. So what's next for our movement? So there's a lot of progress in a short time. It's a lot to celebrate, and it's not the full solution. So we started out our campaign for childcare about 10 years ago, and really about 3 to 4 years ago, decided that in order to get that pay mechanism, that little funding, it always, everyone wants to support kids, childcare, and then when it comes down to the dollars, it gets hard. So we knew public investment would require some sort of increase in taxes, some sort of new funding mechanism, and in Vermont that is a payroll tax. And so that was going to require the political will and the public will to build towards that. So I think that was, about 3 years ago, that was a really important step. Like, what do we need to do to actually not have the Band-Aid, not have smaller incremental steps, but what can we do to really take a sizable chunk out of what we know we need to do to see progress? So we set the barrier. We want no family to pay more than 10% of their income. We want early educators to be paid a fair and livable wage. And so how do we do that? And we constantly hold the bar up to that. So we're closer, but we are not in a place where every Vermonter can access high quality, affordable childcare and pay less than 10% of their income. And surely our early educators are not paid where we want them to be paid. There's progress, but we're not all the way there. So our next areas of focus are continuing to build the profession. So when we're asking folks to pay these early educators more, make sure they're getting the benefits they deserve in healthcare, retirements, everything they deserve, building the profession and really making sure that they're able to do that. We are doing that through our work with Vermont AYC, the Vermont Association of the Education of Young Children on the Vermont side, doing a lot of our workforce building, making sure that there's a profession that is established and that we are working through to make sure that legislators really understand you don't get those spaces and slots without making sure you have a workforce that is paid and that people are excited. That high schoolers are like, this not only can we grab that one high schooler that's really excited about this profession, but why are they excited? Because they're gonna get paid a living wage, or hopefully more. They're gonna get health care, enough to support their families and really have the life that they dreamed of. We need to make sure that people understand that and build those into the profession as we're getting these high schoolers and whoever else excited about entering into the profession. Bottom line is that we are really making sure that this timeline and that when many of you know that LGK is, like Vital Communities, kind of stepping back from some of the big campaign work, what that will look like in Vermont is really, which is why I'm excited to be here today, is really continuing. This movement is not about one organization. It is not about a singular company. It's really about a movement we built in Vermont, and we are transitioning a lot of our work to Vermont AYC and First Children's Finance, and then the organization that helped us, our sister organization, Let's Grow Kids Action Network, is what allowed us to have that political will building. So we were working with, we have 150 childcare champions right now out there on the campaign trail committed to continued work on childcare, continued work on public investment, making sure we see progress on childcare, and making sure that Act 76 is implemented in a way that is ensuring this progress is felt in communities across Vermont. So I won't take any more time because I feel like I'm at my time limit, but LGCAN is really an important tool of how we built that. So we had grassroots mobilization, working with Vermonters, parents, supporters, everyone to make sure that they could talk to their legislators. They could say, yes, that's great, that grant program, but here's what's even more important is the fully funded childcare education system in Vermont. So we work with early educators, we work with parents to make sure that advocacy and engagement. We also work with our businesses, and we have over 300 business endorsers that walked alongside us as we talked to legislators. They stood up in committee and said, I cannot grow as a company, I cannot hire unless you invest now, and we cannot wait. So that is that political pressure and building that, and led us to that moment where we had legislators saying, like, but maybe next year. And we had to say, no, we cannot wait on this, and we built a coalition, and we've built, Vermonters are expecting this. So that political work that came in the end, I think, has really helped us, and it will continue to help support advocacy efforts here in New Hampshire and Vermont and beyond. I think that's everyone.
Emily, it's been amazing watching this journey with you and Let's Grow Kids, and I just want to say my appreciation for not only your passion, but your incredible hard work and for your advocacy. You can just feel it when you're talking to us, and I'm just really grateful for that. Thank you. Hi, Sarah, would you like to talk about what's happening in New Hampshire?
Sure. I'm here to talk about the momentum in New Hampshire for building long-term and early care and education strategy that ensures that all kids 0 to 5 have access to high-quality, affordable early care and education in centers and in family child care settings and in schools. And that also includes a workforce that is both well-prepared and well-compensated. So that vision always has to include also the workforce. And so I do have to say that this panel with Vital Communities, Children's Center of Upper Valley, Early Care and Education Association, Dartmouth Health, and Let's Grow Kids all make it clear that actually this is an achievable situation to resolve. We have identified solutions for how we can build high-quality early care and education systems. So while we are in a crisis and working at the margins, that should not paralyze any continued action on this work, because we actually have solutions. And so it is a matter of thinking about public will for increased investment, which is both federal, local, state, public, and businesses. So this is we should have hope and inspiration, because things can be scaled to actually achieve the vision that we have. So I just want everyone to leave with that thought today, that it is possible to fix the early care and education situation and actually achieve that goal that we have today. And in New Hampshire, there are some really bright spots. You know, we might do it in a different way than Vermont, but many strategies that Let's Grow Kids has used for the playbook is actually also sitting here in New Hampshire. So there is momentum. I think you can point to 2023, where there were some significant child care policy improvements with the Child Care Development Block Grant, looking at increasing family eligibility for child care scholarship, increasing reimbursement rates for providers, still not actually at the level of reimbursing for the true cost of high quality care, but still an increase. Also stabilizing revenue for centers to pay based on enrollment and not attendance, the $15 million investment in the workforce, and recently this summer, the pilot program to hopefully one day ensure that all early care and education workforce members themselves also can be eligible for child care scholarship. these are some really bright points in New Hampshire that are really starting to indicate that some of the attention to these issues is coming to pass. And there's more to come as we think about how we can ensure that infants, toddlers, and preschoolers are in the setting of their family choice, right, and receiving high-quality care. And the strategy that I think that is also going to play out in New Hampshire is focused on 3 elements: research and data, advocacy and organizing, and really looking at how we can build responsive support systems. Much of the work here today is about the responsive provider support systems. So thinking about that strategy, what's happening in New Hampshire? Well, UNH, with the Carsey School of Public Policy under the leadership of Jess Carson, has just launched the Early Care and Education Research Consortium to really start to get at these questions of what's the infrastructure now for early care and education, what's the status of the workforce, what's the supply and demand in terms of early care and education. Then there also have the investment that the New Hampshire Fiscal Policy Institute has done with Nicole Heller, looking at just the questions of true cost of care, how compensation, all things related to a thriving economy. Please check out their website. Both of these websites have available information. So we're starting to actually build the base of knowledge to inform policymaking and also fuel advocacy. And that's an important piece of the work for the long-term strategy that actually played out in Vermont. Another piece is the New Hampshire Early Childhood Funders Collaborative is funding in partnership with Prenatal to Fiscal 5 Strategies, a true cost of care study for New Hampshire, so that we really will, in fact, not just know what it takes now, but in terms of what it really means to deliver high-quality systems from 0 to 5, beyond that constrained thinking of what's happening now, what it really takes to provide that true cost of high-quality care. New Hampshire will have a number for that, which can also help fuel the advocacy and organizing and policymaking agenda. So bright spots here on research and data. On advocacy and organizing, we already have New Futures. We have Save the Children Action Network. That table of grass tops advocacy organizations is being expanded with Waypoint coming into the advocacy realm. So we're building that coalition and growing that coalition where early care and education is on the platform. There's also a grant that is being given in partnership with the Endowment for Health and the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation to support the Raising Childcare Fund. Many of you might know this is a national effort that has really focused on state and local grassroots organizing. So Raising Childcare Fund will now be here in New Hampshire to really bring in community change and childcare for every family network to focus on strengthening the grassroots capacity in New Hampshire for parents, for the early care and education workforce members themselves, and for communities of color to be able to broaden and expand that platform of advocacy and organizers that are focused on the issue of early care and education. So, research and data, advocacy and organizing, we're making progress. The third one about building responsive provider support systems. As I mentioned before, all of the folks here on this table, all of their work falls underneath that umbrella, and we need to continue to support it so it can be at scale and fully supported in the work. But there's also some other actions that we are doing. There is a national Invest in America childcare partnership. So New Hampshire is one of 4 states, so Michigan, Ohio, Arizona, and New Hampshire are actually part of a national effort to focus on how to access the federal dollars that have come through the Inflation Reduction Act, the bipartisan bill, and the CHIPS and Sciences Act. All have early care and education as an allowable use for funding. So let's figure out how employers, community members, advocates, providers can figure out how to braid both those increased federal dollars, state and local dollars together to solve the child care issue in local communities. So we're happy to announce that Lebanon and Manchester are going to be 2 communities in New Hampshire that are going to be part of this effort. And so it's great to see Sean Molland and Chris Emons in the audience with some partners that are going to be really part of this work to kind of tackle what is the business and community need for early care and education and develop some solutions to achieve that while accessing those increased federal dollars. So these are all important pieces to reaching that long-term strategy goal that Vermont has shown many nationwide, right, to lead the way, and we're looking very much forward to building on that progress here in New Hampshire and figuring out the New Hampshire way to achieve similar goals so that in the long term, every child has access to high-quality early care and education. So thank you.
Sarah, thank you for bringing so much knowledge and wisdom to here and into your role, and also just wanted to comment on the strides that you're already making in a position that is fairly recent. So that is amazing. Thank you so much for that. At this time, I bring it to the audience for any questions or comments that you would like to make. Yes, I'm going to walk around with a mic so that people can hear, if I can get it off. Yeah, that's what they said. I didn't mean anything but.
I am so impressed. Thank you so much for the work you guys have contributed to the younger generation. I have 4 boys. I'm Jenny Ramsey. Shameless plug, I am also running for state rep, but in Sullivan County, so you probably can't vote for me anyway. But I wanted to know, what can we do? Most of you I know are in the profession already, but as a layperson that has kids that have been in and out of early childhood education, what areas would you say would be helpful to either spread the word, or I might say vote, but from your perspective, what can we do?
I mean, because we have a candidate in the room, I vote. I mean, I think that we're doing a childcare voter campaign right now, and I think it's really important. Like, we've seen lots of advocacy lobbying efforts. Like, if they know there's voting power behind an issue, that's really important. So I think we're really working with Vermonters right now to support childcare champions, put people, like you say you support kids, great, this is what I'm asking for, and talking to candidates right now. We're, I don't know, less than 20 days left from the election. It's really important. Local elections really matter in childcare work. And, Sarah's talked the New Hampshire way. I grew up in New Hampshire politics. I grew up right here, so I know it's different, but really just elevating the issue with candidates. So you as a candidate, hearing from parents, I'm sure, is really important. Really understanding that's really important. And then as a candidate, hopefully maybe you'll make it to the State House, really understanding what the issues are and working with advocates sitting around me, employers, and really understanding that there are some incremental changes, but what can we be courageous about? And almost always it's investment, right? So almost always thinking about the dollars and the money and making sure there's a thoughtful approach both in New Hampshire and Vermont. And I love, Sarah, hearing all of that work. Like, that is already built, right? So there's no question about what should we do, like what's going to really make a difference. The investment, the public investment, that is what's really going to make a difference. And so candidates need to stand up and really understand that. So that's just the candidate, what can I do, political right now, because it's very top of mind. This election is really important. So that's the political election answer, but others I'm sure have better.
I'll just add to that. And many of us have different employers. All employers in this region are looking for ways to address childcare for their own workforce, helping them to connect into groups like the Early Care and Education Association so that we can all be working together and really having and driving impact through scale. So I think just being able to go back to your own network and communities and really carrying that message forward is a great place to start.
Another comment? Question? Coming to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm Kendra LaRoche. I'm the Executive Director of the Special Needs Support Center. And we have we have over 600 families in the Upper Valley who have individuals with disabilities, and that's been a really tricky group of people to find help for childhood care. I'm wondering if you notice that there are particular groups that are having a more difficult time than others, if you've noticed that disability is more tricky maybe because you need more staff sometimes for one-to-one aid, or whether it's for behavior or for medical needs, and if there's any plans on how to help with that particular issue.
It is a difficult population. The funding differential in New Hampshire, at least, and just a little bit more in Vermont, isn't enough to kind of get us there where we could hire one-on-one aides. I know there are school districts that have 30 paraprofessional openings right now. So, even in early childhood, it's compounded by staffing, by specific training, by staff turnover, by burnout, compensation, and also that child care differential, which is the difference that it's a buffer that you get to help with the increased cost of care for some kids. It just isn't enough to actually cover the actual cost. And I don't know, other than some initiatives in Vermont that are moving towards specialized care, the additional training, and there is some money that comes that way. It's really the staffing and that specific training that goes with working with those kids. So you hire somebody doesn't mean they're an expert in working with children with Down syndrome or working with children with a particular syndrome or behavior or whatever. So it takes time, and we've had such a deep gouge in turnover especially since COVID with our senior staff. Those were the people that really had that knowledge and background, 15, 20 years of training and experience of working with different kids. Those people have thinned out. And not having that kind of support in the program, it makes it even harder to serve that population. I will say that, when it comes to like getting the word out and who do I talk to, one of the strategies that keeps coming up is can we reduce regulations to increase productivity or increase the market, stabilize the market in early childhood. And I'll speak for myself as a former child care provider, but I know Jen here too. We want safety and we want quality, and reducing anything that has to do with safety and quality is not going. It really doesn't save money, and it's not better for the children. So avoiding additional investment by reducing regulations is not a strategy that I believe would ever work in this market. I don't know, Jen, if you have any place that you could cut more funds from when you're operating at a bare minimum.
Yeah, it certainly wouldn't be to reduce, our education that we need to have. So every year we have to have 18 hours of education, and that's not a lot. But to increase that even further, we're dealing with, kids and we want to be up to date on, what we can be, on the new developments of early childhood. So I will say from a classroom teacher perspective that having children with all kinds of needs is really challenging. When you're having 12 other children in your classroom, it's really challenging to have somebody who has a certain behavior or autism that needs more of that one-on-one. It's very hard to have. So especially with the burnout and you're tired, and it's not an easy job by any means.
From a systems perspective, I think one thing that we have to continually think about is when we talk about high quality early care and education, that means inclusive settings. So the piece about serving children with special needs needs to be there from the get-go in terms of figuring out what the true cost of high-quality care is. So it also includes things like access to early childhood mental health consultation and informed care, right? So from that perspective, I think the work that we're doing from the get-go has to include children with special needs from a systems perspective and what we're looking. I think it also speaks to the preparation pipeline for the workforce, right? And this is where I call out like institutions of higher education to also think about the training and competencies that will be needed to serve children with special needs in early care and education settings. So that's another piece that we have to attend to. And then I'm not sure if you saw Jess Carson's new research looking at the public pre-K landscape, but most of the children in that setting have individual education plans. So it's a really interesting element of New Hampshire's system that most of the children with special needs are in a public pre-K setting. And so when we talk about building a system that includes community-based organizations with centers and family child care homes and public pre-K programs, we have to think about that. Like, looking at children with special needs right now are primarily in public pre-K settings, but it could be the fact that all settings should be able to serve those children well. And so why aren't we thinking about it in that way? So those would be the systems questions that we have to really field. But if you haven't seen Jess's research, come to me afterwards.
I just want to take a moment to introduce Carrie Artman, the Executive Director of the CCBA, to quickly talk about the partnership with DH.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Ooh, that's a lot of microphone. So I'm working with Dartmouth Health, with Carolyn and her team. We're rebuilding our preschool. So some of you may know we had a preschool at the CCBA since 1999, a state licensed preschool, in the basement of our original 100-year-old building. And almost a year ago to the day, we had a catastrophic flood in the basement. So the school year had just started. Our teachers were down there with all of our beautiful children, and no more preschool downstairs. So within about 6 weeks, we learned that our director, who had been with us the entire time, was ready to retire. And I think the flood might have pushed her out a little bit, if I'm honest. But so she said, Carrie, as you're looking to rebuild this, I'm not going to be here doing this. And I had a coordinator who'd been with us for about 22 years, and then some lead teachers who had been in sort of rotation. And if we're honest, for the last 10 years, we'd been struggling to be fully staffed. So a couple years ago, as just sort of a little bit of the backstory, 4 of us went in and went through state licensing so we could be official subs, and yours truly was one of those people. And anyone who knows me well knows that that's not the perfect fit for me, but I could go in at a moment's notice and help in the preschool if need be. And to your point earlier that the panel made, when your subs are the main organization's team who are responsible for doing other things, this is where things start to break down, right? So Eileen said she was ready to retire. The basement was completely flooded and ruined for months to come. And so we made the announcement in December that we were going to close the preschool, which was rough, I'll just say. It was a hard decision to make, really heartbreaking for us. A lot of tears were shed because it's a space we believe in and as a community organization want to be a part of. But we knew that the path forward for us was not looking good. And thing number one, yes, we could recover from the flood, but we didn't have teachers. I mean, that's fundamental to the whole process, right? And so after that announcement came out, Carolyn reached out to me and said, would you consider talking about a partnership? And this was just an exploratory conversation. And I said, of course, and honestly, at the time, we were thinking, are we going to go back to making that an aerobic studio? Is that going to become, a physical therapy office? Like, we didn't know what we were going to do with our space. And so the exciting thing with working with Dartmouth Health was they wanted to stay in the space that we really wanted to be in, the ECE space. So that partnership, then working with the ECEA coming in, really became something that we thought, this has legs. So we're about to open the Dartmouth Health CCBA childcare space in January. fingers crossed, knock on wood. We're not actually in charge of the construction, but we cheer for him. So we feel like this is actually a win. And you know, sort of as a case in point, a third of our kids were actually related to the Dartmouth Health system already. So our families, you know, and we all know what a big employer Dartmouth Health is. You know, a third of them were already in our preschool setting. So that was, you know, it felt like a really good fit. Anyway, that's kind of just a quick story. I don't think you guys are all going to have flooded basements where that's going to work for you. I hope that's not the case. But it's an opportunity to think about how do we partner, you know, in our communities to make a good solution out of what was a problem for us. And they can, you know, what Dartmouth Health can bring to the table and the ECA can bring to the table were things that we couldn't, but we had space that we wanted to use for childcare. That's what we can provide. So thinking in those more like creative ways, I think, is one of the ways we're going to get out of this, I mean, all the great stuff you guys are talking about. Just one more thing to add to that plate of things, of opportunities we can look at as a community to get ourselves moving in the right direction. So thank you.
I'm aware of the time. I do see a person who'd like to say something. I don't want to cut anybody off. There you go.
Thank you. My name is Alexa Plever with Andy Lex Youth Enrichment Company, and we supply support services for agencies looking to develop family child care networks and direct services for FCC educators. This is a systems question. As FCC programs continue to grow in New Hampshire, what should New Hampshire be looking at to put in, what systems should New Hampshire be looking at to put in place to increase family child care networks' effectiveness, stability, and equity?
All right, well, I'll take the systems question. Family child care networks are a really important part of the system. So not only do they provide like direct services to support the professional development of our home-based providers, and that is primarily what they have been functioning now, right? To help professional development, to help with quality improvement of the quality in the settings. But there is another aspect to family child care networks that I think New Hampshire has an opportunity for growth, which is family child care networks can also be a contracting mechanism with the state to enable state dollars to actually support that work, and also think about eligibility and enrollment and capacity. Like you could actually contract with a family child care network for a number of slots that could then be guaranteed, like through the providers. There's a lot of different ways that we can think about the implementation systems that are needed. And I think family child care settings is a really good one to think about how we could do things a little bit differently to expand the number of family child care settings, but also adequately support them for the work that they're doing. And I think a network is a really important part of supporting the cohort and professional development and quality that is happening in a home-based service, but there's also a mechanism there that could actually help with capacity for slots and thinking about how the state dollars can support that type of infrastructure implementation system that are going to be needed. So I will say increased investment is super important, but it's the first step. You also have to have the implementation and the infrastructure pieces necessary and needed to be in place to then actually deploy the dollars where they need to go. And so New Hampshire has a twofold thing that we have to work on. One, yes, increase investment, but two, also building the implementation pieces to be ready for that level of investment. And so the strategies that I mentioned before are trying to do both, bring increased investment and to think about the implementation systems that are needed, and family child care settings and networks are a key point of that infrastructure.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, that's what we're working with now. So our family childcare homes are reimbursed right in line with the centers, which was so important, like being able to do that. But now working with them, we have First Children's Finance, which is a technical assistance provider, to really understand they are businesses, they are the solo entrepreneurs, like they are like, so how do we get more in and like not market it, but really talk to people about the benefits of opening a home childcare center, home childcare setting, in a home childcare setting, and what that looks like. But the increased investment just levels the playing field a little bit, but also to your point, Sarah, it's so important to make sure the infrastructure piece and like not just having investment in this like great policy and not having the implementation follow through in these communities to actually make sure those investments are secured in like tangible ways that actually get the outcomes we want.
Okay. I want to thank you all for joining us this morning, and to the panelists, thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge, your wisdom, and your passion. So thank you, Jen, Amy, Carolyn, Emily, and Sarah. I would also like to thank John Drew, Anna Hubbard, and Rebecca Bailey. Rebecca's out there still working away for the wonderful teamwork in putting this event together. We hope you have found this event to be meaningful and that each of you are leaving with action steps that you will take to improve the availability of affordable, high-quality care and education for young children. As we have heard, we have solutions and we cannot wait. Thank you and have a wonderful day.